This is urgent, and the lives of hundreds of thousands of people depend on you responding and reacting to this message. Israel has been engaging in a propaganda war against UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees. Since the International Court of Justice has put Israel on trial for genocide and has issued provisional orders for it to stop its atrocities, Israel has increased the intensity of this defamation. The UK and US and Germany have now announced that they are suspending financial aid to the aid agency, risking the lives of well over 1 million people. This will result in the immediate shortfall of hundreds of millions of pounds at a time when Palestinians need it most. Let me give you a background of exactly how much support the Palestinian people need. 70% of Gazans are refugees from the ethnic cleansing that occurred in other parts of Israel and historic Palestine. Before the recent vicious onslaught by Israel, 80% of Gazans depended on aid. That's 1.7 million people. That aid has already fallen from $2 billion in 2008 to $250 million in 2022. 45% of the Gazan population are unemployed, the highest unemployment on earth. 90% of the water in Gaza is poisonous, and a third of Gazans are considered to be food insecure. These figures are now considerably worse. There is insufficient water in Gaza after Israel damaged the local water sources and limited the water it supplies. In one day, Israel bombed 7 water-producing facilities in Gaza. To put things into scale, the World Health Organization recommends that an individual requires 50 to 100 litres of water per day for cleaning, drinking, sanitation, and cooking. Before this war, Gazans had 15 to 20 litres per day. That is now down to 3 litres a day. There is currently an acute shortage of clean water, which is leading to death and disease. There is evidence in Gaza that famine has now begun to set in, and public health experts are warning that 500,000 people, 500,000 people could die from disease and hunger in the next year. Over 85% of the Gazan population is now forcibly displaced, and we are in the dead of winter. Gazans are facing the full force of Israel's war machine, as well as the full force of nature, and now the full force of disease and hunger. Multiple experts have called this one of the worst humanitarian disasters they have ever seen. So who are UNRWA? They are basically the UN aid organization tasked specifically with tending to the humanitarian needs of Palestinian refugees. They were established in 1948 after the Nakba, the ethnic cleansing of 750,000 Palestinians after the formation of the State of Israel. It has since provided support for 4 generations of Palestinian refugees over the last 75 years. UNRWA predominantly employs Palestinians, providing employment opportunities for over 30,000 members of their team. An investigation has revealed that some UNRWA staff were involved in the October 7th attack on Israel. The number of staff implicated is 12. This constitutes 0.04% of the total workforce of UNRWA. The current announcement by the US and UK would risk entirely collapsing the aid agency. If UNRWA was to cease to function, a very real risk currently, hundreds and thousands of Palestinians will die. This isn't hyperbole, this is fact. UNRWA is one of the few aid organizations functioning in Gaza under intense and vicious Israeli bombing. Israel has already killed 153 UN personnel in a little over 3 months, the highest figure in any conflict in the UN's history. There would be no one else left to help the Palestinians, and they would be left to fend for themselves and to ultimately die. The propaganda campaign by Israel against what is a humanitarian aid organization is abhorrent and vile, but it should come as no surprise. The agency is helping the very people Israel wishes to destroy. We also shouldn't be surprised, as this very same propaganda machine has told us that South Africa is the legal arm of Hamas, that boycotting Israeli supermarket products is anti-Semitic, and that doctors working in hospitals in Gaza are supporting terrorism, including international doctors from Médecins Sans Frontières or Doctors Without Borders. This very same propaganda machine called Palestinians seeking statehood at the United Nations as engaging in diplomatic terrorism. Let's be clear, this is a pretext for collective punishment. It is a textbook example of Article 2 of the Genocide Convention, which refers to deliberately inflicting on a group conditions of life calculated to bring about its destruction, in whole or in part. And the UK and US are being strategically consistent by providing cover for Israel's atrocities. Sadly, whilst they are strategically consistent, the UK and US are morally inconsistent. They have pulled funding for an aid organisation because 0.04% of its staff may have been involved in criminal activity. Would they pull funding and support for Israel now that it is on trial for genocide? Would they pull its arms deals if 0.04% of the IDF is found to have committed crimes during its illegal occupation? Will they pull their support for Israel, for its settlements which are a breeding ground for terrorism by violent settlers and which are illegal under international law? Will Israel itself pull funding for its Zaka organization, the Orthodox Jewish rescue organization whose leader was found to have committed decades of rape, paedophilia, and other sexual offences against women, young girls, and young boys? Will the US defund its police force, which recent studies showed that 20% were racist, amid an epidemic of police violence against black people? 20% of police officers, not 0.04%, 20% of police officers were found to be prejudiced against black people. Will the UK defund its own police force, which has been found to be institutionally racist? Clearly, this would be ridiculous. Organisations are not defunded due to a rogue minority of individuals, especially if the lives of hundreds of thousands of people depend on their existence. If UNRWA requires reform and modernisation, so be it. But this should be a UN-led initiative and not one driven by the very people causing the destitution of the Palestinian people. If individuals within UNRWA require investigation and prosecution, then so be it. They are not above the law. But Israel, the UK, and the US seemingly believe that they are. The ICJ have ordered Israel to adhere to its obligations under the Genocide Convention, including allowing for humanitarian aid to the people of Palestine. This criminal act makes Israel guilty under genocide charges, and the UK and the US are complicit in this crime. I'm asking you to do two things. Firstly, keep the pressure on to make it clear that this is a heinous attack on a UN aid organisation and it is unacceptable. Write to your local politicians, write on social media, tell your friends, tell your colleagues, share this video to help explain to those who may not be aware. Secondly, donate directly to UNRWA to support them. There is a link on the screen and in the comment section. We need to spread the word and push for a donation drive to make sure UNRWA has what it needs to provide for the people whose lives are being destroyed. The 2 million people displaced, the 2.3 million people facing a future of hunger and disease, the children who have lost limbs, lost their parents, lost their lives, the parents who have had to bury their children, their babies. They need us now more than ever, and we must not and cannot remain silent. Please donate. Please do what you can.